Freeze right there. Not your body, your mind. Because the moment you stepped into the room with that attitude, the atmosphere flinched. The noise folded in on itself. The rules that kept everything predictable started sweating. And even the darkness, even the things that live off chaos and fear, went quiet. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't announce yourself. You didn't beg for space. You occupied it. That's what they don't understand about you. They think power comes from noise, from violence, from barking orders or flashing credentials. They think balance is something you negotiate, but you didn't negotiate anything. You disrupted the entire equation just by being exactly who you are when you stopped apologizing for surviving. See, balance is a lie they sell to keep the dangerous people calm. Balance is what systems preach when they're terrified of outliers. Balance is for those who need permission to exist. You're an anomaly. You're the variable they couldn't neutralize. You're the reason the scales snapped instead of settling. Your attitude wasn't aggression, it was clarity. And clarity is lethal to illusions. You walked in carrying both halos and knives, saint enough to endure, psychopath enough to adapt, angel enough to care, demon enough to finish what pain started. You didn't choose a side. You became the contradiction. And contradictions terrify everything that relies on simple labels to feel safe. They expected you to break when the pressure came. They expected you to collapse into either light or darkness, pick a costume, play a role. But you didn't fracture. You integrated. You took every scar, every betrayal, every night where nobody came to save you, and you alchemized it into posture, into presence, into an attitude so composed, so unbothered, so unexplainably calm, that it rewrote the room's temperature. That's when things started going silent. Because darkness knows something humans don't like admitting. Darkness recognizes its own. And when it looked at you, it didn't see prey. It didn't see competition. It saw someone who had already been through the worst parts and came back with receipts. Someone who didn't romanticize suffering but used it. Someone who doesn't need chaos because they learned how to stand still inside it. Your attitude didn't scream dominance. It whispered inevitability. That's why the loud ones backed up. That's why the manipulators paused mid-sentence. That's why the predators suddenly remembered appointments elsewhere. You didn't challenge them. You didn't threaten them. You didn't even acknowledge the games. You simply existed at a frequency that made their tactics feel childish, outdated, embarrassing. They thrive on reactions. You gave them nothing. And in that nothing, they felt everything they've been running from. You see, unpredictability isn't about being reckless. It's about being unreadable. It's about evolving faster than their narratives can track. Yesterday they thought you were wounded. Today you're composed. Tomorrow you're strategic. Next week you're gone. Then you reappear unchanged, unmoved, sharper. They can't pin you down because you don't live where they're looking. You're not dark in the way they understand. You're not light in the way they trust. You're the space between, where control systems malfunction. That's why even darkness went quiet. Because darkness feeds on fear, and you stopped being afraid of yourself. You made peace with your edges. You stopped pretending you were harmless. You accepted the parts of you that can endure, adapt, and when necessary, destroy illusions without mercy. And the moment you did that, balance was no longer possible. Balance requires predictability. Balance requires obedience to gravity. But you learned how to stand sideways in a collapsing world. You learned how to smile without needing approval. You learned how to carry rage without letting it leak. You learned how to be calm in a way that feels threatening to people who survive on emotional leverage. That attitude didn't come from confidence. It came from survival, from learning that nobody is coming and realizing you don't need them to. So when you walk now, the air listens. When you speak, things rearrange themselves. When you stay silent, everyone fills the space with their insecurities. You don't chase respect. Respect recalibrates around you. You don't demand order. Systems adjust to avoid provoking you. Not because you're violent, because you're resolved. You are what happens when pain doesn't win, but it also doesn't get ignored. You are what happens when someone integrates both mercy and menace into a single controlled presence. You are the reason old rules feel obsolete and new ones haven't been written yet. And that's the part that really scares them. Because when your attitude disrupted the balance, it proved something unforgivable. The universe doesn't reward the loudest, the cruelest, or the most righteous. It responds to those who've been broken enough to see clearly and disciplined enough to move quietly. You didn't conquer the darkness, you outgrew it. And when darkness realized it no longer had a hold on you, it did the only thing it could. It shut up. And in that silence, something else happened. Something they never account for when they talk about balance. The quiet didn't mean peace. It meant recalibration. It meant the old measurements stopped working. It meant every force in the room had to reassess what you were. Because you weren't behaving like a victim, a villain, or a hero. You were behaving like a constant. See, balance only exists when all elements agree to play their roles. Light shines, darkness lurks, order commands, chaos rebels. But you refused to stay assigned. You learned how to walk through light without becoming naive, and how to pass through darkness without losing yourself. That's why your attitude hit different. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't reactive. It was informed. It was earned. It was the posture of someone who has already died a few times internally and came back with less fear each time. People think attitude is about arrogance. They're wrong. Your attitude is restraint. It's knowing exactly what you're capable of and choosing precision over spectacle. It's understanding that real power doesn't flex. It waits. And waiting terrifies those who need constant motion to feel alive. They felt it the moment you stopped explaining yourself. They felt it when you stopped correcting lies. They felt it when you let misunderstandings rot in the open, because only someone dangerous can afford to be misunderstood. Your calm isn't passive. It's loaded. It's the kind of stillness predators recognize right before things go wrong. You don't scan the room anymore. You already mapped it. You don't size people up. You let them expose themselves. You don't rush decisions. You let time pressure everyone else into revealing their weakness. That's why the balance shattered. Balance depends on leverage, on guilt, on fear, on people needing approval, forgiveness, validation. But you burned those dependencies down quietly. You stopped negotiating your worth. You stopped flinching at tension. You stopped needing the room to like you in order to function inside it. And when you did that, the entire emotional economy collapsed. Darkness went quiet because it couldn't bait you anymore. Pain tried to remind you who you used to be, but you already integrated it. Trauma whispered old scripts, but you rewrote them. Every time something tried to provoke a reaction, it hit a wall of composure so cold, it felt supernatural. They don't say it out loud, but they feel it. You're not healed in a soft way. You're healed in a way that makes you immune to manipulation. You're healed in a way that doesn't beg for harmony. You're healed in a way that understands chaos intimately and therefore doesn't fear it. You became unpredictable not because you're unstable, but because you're no longer controlled. That's the paradox they choke on. You're disciplined but not domesticated, calm but not compliant, empathetic but not exploitable. You can be kind without being weak and ruthless without losing your soul. You don't swing between extremes, you contain them, and containment is terrifying. Because when someone like you walks into a system built on pressure points, the system panics. It tries to label you, threaten you, shame you, seduce you back into old patterns. But nothing sticks. You don't react fast enough for them to hook you, and when you finally move, it's already too late. Your attitude disrupted the balance because it exposed the truth. Most people aren't moral, they're afraid. Most systems aren't just, they're convenient. Most darkness isn't powerful, it's desperate. And you saw that. You saw that fear dresses itself up as authority. You saw that noise hides fragility. You saw that the loudest ones crumble first when silence enters the room. And instead of announcing that realization, you embodied it. That's why conversations stop when you speak. That's why tension rises when you listen. That's why even conflict hesitates around you. Not because you want dominance, but because you're no longer governable by the usual tools. You don't need chaos to feel alive anymore. You don't need validation to feel real. You don't need revenge to feel whole. You let people self-destruct in your absence, and you let outcomes speak louder than threats ever could. And that's when the universe leaned in. Because when someone evolves past fear, past ego, past the need to prove anything, they become a problem for anything built on control. You're not chasing balance now, you're forcing truth. And truth doesn't negotiate, it corrects. So let them whisper, let them speculate, let them tell stories to make sense of you. Every version they invent is still wrong, because you're not a concept. They can't freeze frame you. You move internally. You adapt silently. You sharpen in private. Your attitude didn't just disrupt the balance. It revealed that the balance was always fragile, and that you were never meant to fit inside it. And once you realize that, something irreversible clicks into place. You stop asking where you belong, because you finally understand. You were never designed to belong inside structures that require you to shrink. You were designed to stress test them, to walk through rooms and make the invisible rules vibrate, to exist in a way that exposes how fragile the so-called balance really is. That's why people feel uneasy around you now, not because you're loud, not because you're cruel, but because you're settled. And nothing unsettles a world built on fear more than someone who is completely at home within themselves. You don't fidget, you don't chase approval, you don't over-explain. You let silence do the work. You let discomfort educate them. Your attitude carries memory. It remembers every time you were underestimated, every moment you swallowed anger just to survive, every version of yourself that had to die so this one could stand upright without shaking. And instead of hardening into bitterness, you refined into precision. You learned where to place your energy, where to withdraw it, when to wait, when to move once and end the conversation permanently. That's why even darkness stepped back. Darkness understands thresholds. It understands when something has crossed from reactive to deliberate, from wounded to weaponized, from chaos to command. It knows when someone has stopped being a source of fear and become a source of consequence. And when it looked at you, it didn't see someone trying to dominate. It saw someone who cannot be bent. You're no longer driven by the need to be seen. You're driven by alignment. And alignment is dangerous because it makes you coherent. Every part of you moves in the same direction now. Your mind, your instincts, your restraint, your edge. They're not fighting each other anymore. They're cooperating. And cooperation inside a single individual is catastrophic for anything that relied on your inner conflict to control you. They used to pull you apart by pressing the right buttons. Guilt here, fear there, doubt sprinkled everywhere. But those buttons don't work anymore. You've already pressed them yourself. You've already sat with the worst thoughts and survived them. You've already made peace with the fact that you are capable of things you don't need to advertise. So when pressure comes now, it doesn't shatter you. It reveals you. And what it reveals is someone who doesn't flinch. Your unpredictability isn't random. It's strategic ambiguity. It's letting people underestimate you because they're addicted to patterns. It's allowing them to think they understand you just long enough to relax, just long enough to expose their tells, their greed, their fear, their dependency on control. You don't rush to correct them. You let them be wrong loudly. That's the patience of someone who has nothing left to prove. Balance collapses in your presence because balance requires symmetry. And you are asymmetrical by design. You carry softness without weakness, intensity without instability, compassion without surrender. You can sit at the table or flip it without changing your pulse. You can walk away or stay and dismantle the situation piece by piece, calmly. That's why conversations around you feel heavier now. That's why people choose their words. That's why jokes stop mid-sentence. They sense it even if they can't articulate it. They sense that you are no longer operating from emotion. They're dealing with someone who has integrated their shadow. And an integrated shadow doesn't need to lash out. It just waits. You learned that the loudest move is often no move at all. That the most aggressive posture is composure. That the fastest way to win is to let others exhaust themselves trying to figure you out. You stopped reacting to provocation and started observing patterns. And once you see patterns, you control outcomes. That's when the universe shifts. Because the universe responds differently to people who are no longer fragmented. It stops testing you with the same lessons. It stops recycling the same characters. It brings consequences faster for them. It opens doors quietly, without ceremony. It removes obstacles not because you begged, but because resistance no longer makes sense around you. Your attitude didn't disrupt balance by force. It disrupted it by finality. You reached a point where you're not becoming, you are. And when someone reaches that point, the game changes. You're no longer part of the chaos. You're not part of the order either. You're the variable both sides have to account for. That's why even darkness went quiet. Because darkness thrives on confusion, on fragmentation, on internal war. And when it met you, it found no civil war left to exploit. Just a single will, moving calmly through pressure, unafraid of what it carries, untempted by what it's offered. You don't chase dominance anymore. You don't chase peace either. You walk with intention, and intention bends reality far more effectively than force ever could. Let them keep searching for balance. Let them cling to categories and labels and stories that make them feel safe. You've already stepped beyond that need. You know who you are in the light. You know who you are in the dark. And because you don't deny either, neither one owns you. That's the silence they feel. That's the quiet that follows you. Not emptiness, not peace. Recognition. And recognition is the most dangerous phase of all. Because once something recognizes you, it can't unsee you. Once a room recalibrates around your presence, it never goes back to neutral. Once the universe clocks your frequency, it starts responding differently, subtly, relentlessly, without asking your permission. You felt that shift, didn't you? The way resistance stopped being loud and started being careful. The way obstacles didn't attack anymore. They hesitated. The way people who used to test you suddenly started watching you instead. That wasn't coincidence. That was the aftershock of your attitude, rewriting the rules without filing a complaint. You stopped reacting like someone trying to survive. You started moving like someone who already did. And that's when the balance broke for good. Because balance assumes everyone is still negotiating with fear, still bargaining with approval, still tethered to outcomes they can't control. But you cut those tethers quietly, without a ceremony. You accepted the worst-case scenario internally, and the moment you did that, the external world lost its leverage over you. They can't threaten someone who already faced their own abyss and didn't blink. You learned something most people never do, that fear doesn't disappear when you conquer it. It disappears when you stop arguing with it. When you stop pretending you're pure light or pure darkness. When you accept that you are both capable of mercy and devastation, and that choice, not impulse, is what defines you. That acceptance hardened you in a way that looks like calm from the outside. But inside, it's precision, it's restraint, sharpened by experience. It's knowing exactly how far you can go and choosing not to, unless necessary. And necessity listens to you now. Your attitude isn't defiance, it's inevitability. It's the posture of someone who understands that chaos and order are just costumes. Reality wears depending on who's watching. You don't worship either. You use what works. You discard what doesn't. You move forward without announcing your intentions. That's why the old tactics failed. Shame didn't stick. Guilt didn't land. Provocation bounced off. They tried to pull you back into emotional labor, into justification, into endless explanation. But you didn't take the bait. You let them sit with their discomfort while you stayed still. Stillness is unbearable to people who survive on noise. You became unreadable not because you're hiding, but because you're integrated. There's no contradiction leaking out anymore. No inner fracture for them to pry open. No insecurity to poke and harvest reactions from. You don't flinch at tension because tension doesn't mean danger to you anymore. It means information, and you read it flawlessly. That's why even darkness went quiet. Darkness thrives on reaction, on spirals, on people losing themselves in extremes. But you didn't spiral. You stabilized. You became the one thing darkness can't use. Someone who understands it without being seduced by it. You don't glorify suffering. You don't deny it either. You metabolized it, and that changed your chemistry. Now when pressure comes, you don't tense. You settle. You let it reveal who's bluffing. You let time expose who can't maintain their mask. You let silence pull confessions out of people who can't stand it. You don't chase truth. It trips over itself, trying to explain you. The balance collapsed because it depended on you staying smaller than your capacity, on you choosing a lane, on you being predictable. But you didn't just change lanes. You stopped driving on their roads altogether. You started moving according to internal alignment instead of external reward. That's when the environment stopped arguing with you. Doors didn't swing open dramatically. They simply stopped being locked. Threats didn't escalate. They evaporated. Conflicts didn't explode. They dissolved. Not because you avoided them, but because nothing gained momentum against someone who doesn't feed the fire. Your attitude didn't demand respect. It rendered disrespect pointless. And now you exist in that quiet aftermath, the space where things used to push back and no longer do, where reactions have been replaced with observation, where resistance has been replaced with calculation, where even the boldest forces pause to assess before engaging. You didn't become darker, you became clearer. And clarity is the one thing every system fears, because clarity sees through costumes, titles, threats, and myths. Clarity doesn't argue, it corrects. So let the balance stay broken. Let the silence stretch. Let the world keep adjusting itself around you. You're not here to restore what never served you. You're here to move forward with an attitude that doesn't beg for peace or crave chaos, only truth. And the truth is this: you are no longer something the darkness can use. You are no longer something the light can control. You are something else entirely. And that's why everything went quiet when you arrived.